Welcome to the Strong, Single and Human podcast, a real look at single parenting, how to navigate the ups and downs of life with kids on your own while keeping sane. We cover all manner of subjects from domestic violence, dealing with childhood trauma, through to fussy eaters and how to help your kids become resilient. I'm your host, Claire Martin. Welcome. Nisha Lehman is a mobile developer by day. By night, she is a staunch advocate for better mental health and the founder of the app Confidential Conversations. She wants to share her app that integrates video games that address specific mental health issues for users and how mental health trickles down and impacts the children. Being able to offer tailored, immersive experiences that speak to specific mental health issues for those who are struggling with poor mental health can be an effective outlet to experience everything through a different set of eyes and address mental health in a safe and secure way without having to relive painful moments or trauma. How games can be used to improve and contribute to the mental health space is of great interest to her, especially in the world we are living nowadays. This is the Strong, Single and Human podcast. Hi, Nisha. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. We've been going back and forth for a while, so I'm really happy that we finally found the time to get this in the calendars.
Both busy people. But yeah, this subject fascinates me. What with my background in IT, and then also all of the things that, the ups and downs that I've been through as a single parent, what you're doing with this app, Confidential Conversations, it really fascinates me. But look, let's take a step back first of all and actually go through, like, how did you get to where you got to consider the need for an app out there like you've just developed?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. I, like many others, am also going through and navigating being a new parent in addition to all of the other stresses in life. I don't know exactly what I had. That's why it's always difficult for me to talk about this, because I think it might have been a mixture of a lot of things. I was definitely suffering from high stress and burnout at work. That's for sure. I think there might have been a mixture of postpartum depression in there as well, because after having the child, I wasn't really myself anymore. And then I had been essentially very kind of unceremoniously laid off from work because of the kid and having to take the time off and all the things. And so I think the combination of all of those really put me into like a very oh my God, what is my life about? What am I worth? What am I doing? All these questions about, am I doing this right? Am I just going to be a colossal failure at being a parent, which was a real fear for me, because I was in no way, shape, or form prepared for parenthood in any way.
I don't think any of us are. I don't care what anyone says to you. It's like, nah, none of us are.
Yeah, and I was just in a very dark place, and I knew it wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for my partner. It wasn't good for the child, and so I really wanted to, rather than, and of course that's in the midst of COVID as well too. So you cannot see anyone, you can't go outside, and so I think what really stemmed the need for me to work on something was I needed a project. I needed something to keep myself busy. And considering that I was going through all of these mental health related issues kind of all at once, I was thinking, what's the best thing I can put my effort toward is really trying to create some kind of a support group system, like a global mental health community where you're completely anonymized and private in talking about your mental health, because many of these things started to spring up during the pandemic, online therapists and professionals you could see via Zoom and so on. That started happening with physical health too, but none of it was private. It didn't really feel like any of it was really anonymized. The only thing I could find that was kind of similar to this are like Facebook groups for new parents or divorced parents or people going through loss or whatever it is. And that's nice, but it's connected to your public profile. So then you are if you're not ready to be publicly outed with a mental health issue, it's all available and accessible for people to see. And it felt so invasive to me to talk about this on a social media platform of all places. And so when I really started to deep dive into, isn't there some private platform available where people can connect and connect with each other and tune in and listen into other people's issues privately and anonymously, that's specific to mental health, that's kind of specific to really intimate private issues that we go through, that really only a fellow survivor could understand and kind of help you along. And as I started to do more and more research on this, there really didn't seem to be anything in the market at that time that existed that was similar. And that was
Wow.
really where the concept of the app came from. And it saved me creating this app because I was suddenly consumed by a new project. I was really kind of manically working toward getting it released because I knew if I'm suffering from mental health issues, thousands of others are as well. And the longer you wait in giving people resources and access, the more dangerous it becomes for themselves and for other people. So because unfortunately with mental health, if it's poor, you spiral down pretty fast.
Yeah, very
And
fast.
so because I was doing the bulk of the work on my own during my leave, so it did take a bit longer than what I was expecting, somewhere between, usually apps you can develop within 3 to 6 months and they're available. This took me the better part of a year to get out, but it's available now, and I hope it's helping people cope the way it helped me through a very difficult time.
So how does it actually work then? So you as a user set up a profile and log on, but that profile you could call yourself Jack when your name's actually Sarah or whatever. How does it work?
Yeah, so it's not even that. Basically, you log in
Okay.
with a PIN. Like it's a PIN like
Oh,
you would use at an ATM or at a bank or something. It's a number that only you know. You log in with that number, and then you are basically just randomly assigned an emoji. So broccoli or cauliflower or a sunflower or whatever it is. I mean, at some point you could choose. We're again toying with the idea of customizing this a little bit, but right now it's all random. So you're just assigned, and nobody knows anything else about you except this. That this is all that is publicly facing, and the groups are capped at like 7 or 8 people per group. So the idea is, if you suffer from, let's call it, we'll think about something very kind of high level, like if you suffer from anxiety, or if you suffer from depression, or if you suffer from, getting divorced, and going through that, or grieving the loss of someone, everything is organized in kind of categories and subcategories of mental health related issues, and it's pretty expansive. We tried to cover as much as we could possibly think of that exists right now in terms of what people could be suffering from or what might come in the future. And you can sign up for groups, and basically once you get the core number of people that are suffering from the same issue, the group is capped, it's locked, so no one else can join. And once you have your quorum of 6 or 7, you'll have different emojis all in there chatting with each other on, well, I'm suffering from, this. I think it's at kind of like this level, or I'm not, or you could even join it because you're not sure, right? I don't know if this is what I have or not. Like, and then people can schedule calls, and the calls are also completely anonymous, where you can anonymize your voice as well. So
oh,
you can
wow.
use a synthesizer to really, how they do it in the movies
Yeah,
and so on when they want to
yeah.
protect witnesses. And so it's basically that concept where you can share as much of yourself as you feel comfortable, but if you really are private, like I am, and you don't want really people to be able to identify you in any way, you can anonymize your voice. But the point is, you're able to talk about your issues, your problems, whatever you're experiencing, with a group of other people, in theory, suffering from the same thing that can relate to you. And hopefully, out of that conversation, you get someone in the group that is, maybe you can help them out because you've been where they are, or someone else is in the group that's been where you are and can share some experiences and some tips and some ideas on, well, I tried this and this medication didn't work for me, or I know I integrated this into my routine and it made a huge difference. Things that essentially, a therapist may not be able to tell you, because it's not like a therapist is going through the same thing that you are. So this is
Well,
really
yes.
it almost call it like a survivor support group, right? It's a support group, but the difference is you're completely protected in your identity. And if you don't feel comfortable talking about your mental health issue, because that is an issue for a lot of people, right? There's just the stigma around accepting that you have a mental health problem. If you want to just listen and try to kind of absorb what other people are going through in the group, and take those experiences and bring them into your own experience to see, how can you learn from other people's mistakes, how can you adapt some of that into your own and share that into the group later. You share whenever you're comfortable to share. That's the idea. So yeah, I mean, the dynamics of the group are always going to be a little bit different. In the best case scenario, you have what I just described. In the worst case scenario, you might have more people that are shy or a little bit more introverted or not comfortable talking about this. And if you are, the point here is this is a safe space to share whatever you're going through, because the people that are listening to you are not judging you, because they've been through it too, and they have no place to judge you, right? So the idea is you're just sharing this with other people that can understand and cope with you, and you kind of have a hand to hold as you go through this together with someone else, which already makes a pretty big difference.
So who sets up the groups? Do you, as a PIN number, can you log in and set up the groups? How do the groups get set up?
So basically, you can, when you join, okay, let's take a hypothetical, right? Let's say I am suffering from alcoholism, whatever you want to say, right? Or let's say I'm suffering from postpartum depression, whatever you like, right? You would go to that subcategory and you will see the groups that currently exist. And the groups are also just numbers: group 1, group 2, group 3. There's nothing identifiable about the group. But then you'll be able to see if that group has open spaces or if it's locked. If the group is locked, you can't join because it's already at capacity. So you have the option of joining an existing group where there's places available, or you create your own. You can create a brand new group.
Oh, wow.
There's no limit also to the number of groups you can join, because people may be suffering, like myself, people may be suffering from a lot of different things. You might be going
that was one of the things I was going to ask. Yeah, that was what I was going to ask, is how many groups can you join, right?
You can join as many as you need. You can join as many as you need. So there's no limit. It's all because it's all about your time, right? How much time you're willing to invest into your mental health, or if you do have the wherewithal to be able to do some kind of self-assessment to say, well, my depression is worse than my, I don't know, than my anxiety, or my depression is leading to my anxiety, or the other way around, right? If you have some awareness about what exactly are you going through and what exactly are you suffering from, you can join groups in all of these things or in some of these things. You join, you experiment, you see if it works for you. If it does, you join more. If it doesn't, then you might want to join a different group. So you can leave, and it is very fluid. You can leave and join the groups as you feel like. But the idea is it's all a knowledge exchange at the end. You take your experiences and what you learned, and maybe you bring it to a group that is struggling to kind of find the right chemistry, or trying to get together, or so on, right? Or you create your own group and you become kind of like the default lead of that group, and you can then start talking through things with other people that way. So it's completely up to you.
But none of these groups really are like location based as such. So none of these groups are like PTSD sufferers Melbourne or something like that. You're just a PTSD sufferer, and you could be talking to anyone all over the globe.
Exactly. You could be talking to anyone all over the globe. And so the app, I will say right now, is quite bare bones, right? Because again, I was really trying to push to get it out the door as soon as possible. So what we want to include in the next iteration, which will be coming out probably later this year or early next year, is language translation functionality. So if you don't speak English, it will automatically kind of translate your language into English as the default, so people can cope with you, can understand you, but you don't have to necessarily speak. Exactly. We want to be able to also offer some kind of calendar functionality within the group, so that you can actually schedule times rather than having it being so, because right now it's very off the cuff. You just call into the group, and then whoever can joins, and you talk just to them, right? But it's not like it's a scheduled meeting, and I mean, I'm like that. I need meetings in my calendar, or I forget. So we want to integrate a calendar also to be able to assess kind of what's the ideal time for everyone to join, given the time zones that we're looking at for that particular group, right? um, and like I mentioned before, we're integrating a library of digital media and content and video games that allow you to essentially have another baseline for conversation in the groups. But also, if you are suffering from OCD, or if you're suffering from, yeah, grieving the loss of someone, or something like that, you can eh, kind of you can kind of experience that in a different way. So you can experience grief through another survivor's eyes, and try to go through that experience of the video game to try to get the messages of what that game developer was trying to get across to you. The idea is we want to be able to see which video games are the most popular, and then we'll ask these developers to maybe come and speak within the groups as well, if there's interest. So there's a lot of things we're toying with, that we are developing right now to include, because right now it's really just call, chat, speak, share, very basic functionalities there. But we really want to try to make this a bit more suited to the users, because you may not be comfortable in talking about your mental health, but if you can talk about a video game, it somehow
Yeah.
separates you from the mental health issue, right? Because now you're talking about an avatar that's not necessarily you. This person went through this emotion, but it was super weird for me because I didn't experience that. Why, right? And let's talk about it in the group, right? Let's see if those experiences resonate or create new conversations or new ways, perspectives of looking at mental health. So we're really toying with a lot of things right now, and I think the next iteration will also be able to offer much more to our users.
So why are the groups capped, and why are they capped at the number why did you come up with the number of like 6 or 7? Was that like an optimum number? And
Yeah,
like,
so
why are they capped?
basically we based this on what you would take in a physical support group. So if you have a grief counseling
Okay.
group or something like that, typically the number is between 6 and 8 is the optimal. So we wanted it to be intimate, right? I think the issue and why a lot of mental health issues are stemming right now is much bigger than just tech and other things. But we communicate much more now en masse than we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever you want, right? We put messages on social media platforms that are available for everyone, whether that message is relevant to you or not. And when you don't get the response that you are looking for, because you're communicating en masse, you get trolls, you get people who think, who want to voice an opinion that's not necessarily supportive to you, but they just want their voice to be heard too. It can discourage you. You see that there are all of these mental health issues stemming from doom scrolling and cyberbullying and catfishing and deep fakes, and I mean, the list goes on, and it won't stop, unfortunately, because technology is not going to
No.
stop for us. So, but the idea here is, rather than doing it en masse, you have a much more concentrated, intimate, personal group of people capped at 6 or 8, and they're all struggling with PTSD. They're all struggling with surviving a car crash or surviving a gunshot, right? They're all struggling from these experiences where they can talk to you in a way that a mass communication method would never be able to communicate with you or talk to you, right? So you can really have intimate, personal conversations with other people in a way that's not just blasting messages out there and hoping for a response, right? And I think, unfortunately, our communication methods have changed so much, because now the goal is not to have authentic, genuine conversations, because that takes too much time. It's really just blasting a message out to as many people that can see it as possible, and then hoping that someone says, "Oh, yeah, I experienced that too." Right? It might
Yeah.
happen. It might not happen. Or you might get one person that says that, but then you'll get a hundred other people that say, "Wow,
Oh,
you're crazy for feeling like this." get over it,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
These things that are absolutely not supportive and not helpful for people struggling with real mental health issues. And so we wanted to create a space that was private, that was intimate, and that was really more tailored to actually getting better rather than getting validation for certain thoughts or comments or what have you.
Yeah, because I've got to agree with you. I find that on the Facebook groups, people post stuff to just validate their opinion.
Yep.
And they get 5 or 6 opinions. It doesn't matter whether you're a single parent or whether you're a new parent or whatever, and you're going, my baby poo is green. Is there something wrong with my baby? You'll get like 20 different opinions or 20 million different opinions, right? On whether your child has something wrong with it. Take it to the A&E, all these different things, right? So, yeah, I mean...
No, of course. And it doesn't help. It just, at some point, it
much.
just confuses you and overwhelms you to the point where you just want to crawl in bed and forget about everything, right?
And you just don't know which way to turn, do you?
Exactly. No, you don't. And I mean, look, there's not going to be full consensus even in a group of 6 or 8 either. But I believe that the conversation will be significantly more constructive to you than any mass communication modus could ever be. That's also why therapy is effective, right? Because it's a one-to-one conversation. What I don't like about therapists is, one, they are kind of pushing you and prodding you into subject matter areas where you may not be comfortable talking about, right? So because they can't help you, they can't really do anything for you unless you tell all, unless you share everything with them, what you're going through, what your experience are. And unfortunately, not everyone is at that level where they even feel comfortable talking about what happened to them or what they might be experiencing. They feel shame around the feelings or guilt or anxiety or whatever it might be. So, that's one reason why therapy really only works for people who are extroverts or people who are really comfortable with their own mental situation, that they feel open enough to talk about it with someone. Whereas here, if it's a group, it's a different vibe, it's a different atmosphere. You can kind of piggyback on another person, or if you disagree with something fundamentally, you can also jump in and say, no, I really feel strongly that this is not how you're supposed to feel, or whatever it is, right? And so you can stem a conversation and a debate this way, I think, in a much more constructive way. The other problem with therapists is, and I'm not saying this is true of all the therapists, but they gain something from your pain, right? They make money off of you. And so the other side for me is, and I'm very maybe skeptical, cynical, whatever you want to say, right? But if you're paying someone to tell you how you need to feel or how to get better, or so on, right? And that money is coming out of your pocket. It's not subsidized by insurance or something else. It's really your money that you're giving to a therapist to help you out. How do you know that they have your best interest? I mean, they make money the longer you see them. So I don't know. For me, it's like this. And I'm again, I really want to caveat this by saying, definitely not all therapists are like that. Some want to use, that's great, but some again, if that's the business model of how they make money, it always is going to raise the question for me of, well, are you doing this because it's actually what I need, or are you doing this because you make more money by positioning this particular drug over that one, or you make more money because you get another 10 sessions from me, or whatever it is, right? So business model is structured in such a way that there's this underlying, for me at least, cynicism about seeing them. Whereas in a group like this, it's basically just you take what you need from the group, right? So there's going to be some opinions that you disagree with that you don't have to subscribe to. There's going to be things that you resonate with that are going to be more relevant to your situation. And there's nobody saying anything in the group based on some kind of monetary exchange, right? These are all just people suffering from the same thing that want to get together and go through it together and help each other through these really difficult moments. There's nothing in it for you except that. Like it's I would say much more altruistic approach to mental health, because you have a hand to hold, so you don't have to face these issues, these feelings alone. One, but two, if you're in a group setting, that you might be able to exchange and get something from someone else. You might be able to give advice to someone that has that has a joy too, when you can actually help someone else avoid the pitfalls that you yourself experienced, right? And kind of serve as this more like a mentor mentee relationship, that brings a kind of completely different joy and happiness to someone. So I think, yeah, for me, this feels much more genuine and it feels much more authentic than a therapist ever could. But different strokes for different folks, right? Please don't don't not see a therapist because of me or because of this advice. I'm saying it doesn't work for
Oh no.
me for those reasons, but like it might work for you too. And if you can afford it, go for it. The other issue is they're expensive. If you don't have the disposable
Yeah.
income for a therapist, then your mental health issues sit on the back burner, and the longer they do, the worse they get. So this is hopefully a quicker way to be able to at least express what you're feeling, get it out there, get it into not necessarily into the zeitgeist, but into a group of people that are going through something similar or the same thing as you, to be able to really get concrete feedback and directions on, okay, guys, I really feel like this. I don't know where to turn anymore. Like, nobody gets me. My partner doesn't understand me. Nobody can understand this except, a fellow alcoholic or a fellow sexual assault survivor or something, right? So guide each other through and help each other through, and hopefully through that, because we're not going to be able to solve mental health issues on our own, never. And technology is only going to make them worse. So really the only refuge we have is each other. And it sounds like a folk song now, what I say. But the only refuge we have is really like, we have to kind of come together and really try to blind leading the blind in a way, but at least try to go through it together with each other. So if we fall down together, and there's someone there to pick you up, right? So that's really the idea more than
And
anything else.
and the problem is, in this day and age, right, a lot of us are working, right, 9 to 5 or whatever, and or 9 to 8 or whatever it is, because it's just full on crazy world that we live in. We are driving to work or working from home or whatever, right? So if we're working from home, we're isolated because we're in our little home offices working with our colleagues and friends on Zoom. So we're not actually in an office face to face with them. And also, like you said, right, it's okay speaking to friends, therapists, etc., but they haven't been through the attack, the abortion, the emotion of dealing with bereavement or any of those things, right? So sometimes it's easier to be in a group of people who understand everything that you've been through: domestic violence, alcoholism, drug addiction. It's easier to talk to those people because they understand when you say, oh, yeah, no, that's all I think about 24/7 is when will I get my next drink? Or I don't want to leave the house because I'm scared that I'm going to be attacked. Or those people can, that emotion and those feelings, they can, they resonate with that. Whereas potentially a therapist hasn't been raped or is an addict or, has had a domestic violence situation that they've been in, right? So they've dealt with and studied the mental health and abilities and things like that people may go through and may experience, but they've studied it, right? They haven't lived it. They haven't lived it every day. So I understand what you're saying. Completely understand that it's a lot easier to talk to a group of people who understand what you're going on about.
Exactly.
Let's face it.
Oh, I mean, exactly. That's basically the bottom line, right? And up until that point, there hasn't been a kind of dedicated platform for that. And so that's why, that's really why the app came into existence, right? To allow people a platform, a place to come specifically for that reason. And to talk about the triumphs too. I think a lot of the time we assume that mental health is this kind of just dark cloud hanging over you, but every day you recover, every day you don't have a drink, every day every day you get up in the morning and you live your life after the attack or whatever it is is a massive victory, and that should be celebrated too. And this is also a place to bring those things, to be able to go, to be able to go in and say, look, my child's poop is the right color today, or I slept all night for the first time since the baby was born, or these just what we would think of as small victories, but they mean so much in the larger spectrum of being a parent, of being a human, right? And so I think we also really underestimate those, but they should be celebrated and they should be welcomed into the group too.
I interviewed a lady who unfortunately lost her son. He was killed in a car accident. He was early 20s, and she wrote a book about the fact that get out of bed, go clean your teeth, right? That's all she said. That was her goal in the day, was to get out of bed and go clean her teeth, or go do just get out of bed, get dressed, right? Do whatever. But there were small baby steps, right? Because otherwise she would have just stayed in bed, put the covers over her head and not got any further forward. So it is about those sort of things. So look, I think it's great. I think it's great that we've got a platform. Thank you for giving us a platform where we can actually go. And it could be that you use the app and also use a therapist, and you use, it doesn't matter how many tools you've got in your toolbox, as long as
they help.
You're positive and moving forward.
Indeed.
And, life is for living at the end of the day. So we all have problems, but it's about getting those tools in your toolbox to actually help you out. Do you have anyone who mediates the groups at all? So, like, if there was any abuse or any I don't know, arguments, not seeing each other's point of view or whatever.
So excellent question.
Do they kick people out? Like, I don't.
So here's where the admins come in. So we don't monitor any of the conversation, because that's a pretty big invasion of your privacy. As if you couldn't already tell, I'm a pretty private person, and I will never invade people's privacy, nor will I collect any data from the user to whatever for advertisements. There are like 1,000 other social media platforms that do that already. So we don't need to play in that game. Your data is your data. Your story is your story. I as an admin have very little to do with it. The only time I get involved is, so users are kind of expected to police the groups themselves too, right? To make sure that everyone is behaving. Think about it like a Wikipedia almost business model, right? Where you kind of you contribute to the Wikipedia knowledge base, but then if something is wrong, you have another user that kind of comes and corrects it, or so on, right? The idea here is, if you have someone in the group that is making racist comments or bigoted comments or saying things that are insensitive, or pushing products, which is another things that we see, right?
Wow.
People who come into, drug reps or people who come into the groups that are solely there to position products that, that they can't get, because they can't get to this user base any other way. Unfortunately, we can't close the groups, we can't close the groups off to anyone. And because we don't have we don't have your data, we don't know who you are, and we don't know the reason why you're there. So the only time admins get involved with what happens in the groups is if a user flags a suspicious comment to us. It can be, it can be anything suspicious. It can be something that was said that was discriminatory or racist, or just insensitive, or, like I said, product pushing, which might be someone just randomly puts comments or what looks like spam into the group that is basically like, hey, have you guys thought about this new drug that's coming out? Have you thought about this clinical trial, or whatever it is? Incredibly dangerous also to put this into a group of vulnerable people. But unfortunately, we can't control who's in the group because we're not collecting people's data. So whoever wants to join can join, and you will have trolls, and you will have these, you will have people that join. But if you flag that comment to us, we will allow that user, the user who made the comment, 24 hours to provide a valid response to us why they made it. It might be that they are a patient in a clinical trial, and maybe this is working for them, or whatever it is. Or you have to allow them at least the opportunity to justify the action. If they provide something that is clearly, in you can tell sometimes these are created by ChatGPT or something, right? The responses. So it's really like, they'll write something like, oh, but we think this could be beneficial for this set of users. Well, you're not a doctor. You don't get to decide that. And you have no place in the group. And basically, if we determine that this was made in a kind of malicious intent, then we kick that user out and we revoke the privileges for the app for them. And that the
Wow.
idea is then they can enter the app, but they can't join any group, which for me defeats the purpose right now of having the app, because that's the only functionality that really matters in the groups. And so the idea is they can see the groups that are being created, but they can't join any group. And so it's kind of like banning the user for a certain number of time. And we have this kind of 3 strikes policy with users. So I think the first ban is 90 days. The second ban is so that we try to give people the opportunity to redeem themselves if they really do want help, because we don't want to lock out people who really do need help and are just trying to make maybe productive comments, but they can't communicate it the right way or so on, and we get that, right? But we really also are doing our best to weed out trolls and people who are not there for the right reasons. This is an app that is supposed to be a safe space for survivors, for people who are going through real mental health issues. And if that's not the criteria that you fit, then this app, there's no place for you. Go put the ad on Facebook or somewhere else where people will read it, right? So, and it's not like there's no dearth of social media where you can put
there's
that
loads.
advertisement or whatever. Yeah. So it's a bit like self-policing in this moment. So the groups are not actively monitored, but admins do get involved to ban users that are there for nefarious purposes.
And you mentioned earlier, actually, that you were looking at pursuing more of a gaming experience going forward. Like you're now looking at developing more of a gaming experience. So it's not just sitting in a group of 6 or 7 people listening or talking about your experiences and working through it. You're actually looking at how you can counsel, for want of a better word, or help people by playing a game and not making it so much around group therapy or talking like to a therapist as such, but actually make it more interactive.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's part of the digital media aspect of this, the kind of content library that we're building. So many people who have suffered from mental health issues, thank goodness for them, by the way, because that's an amazing way to kind of channel what you're going through into an experience that might be relatable to others. There is a wonderful organization called Games for Change that really focuses specifically on this. So games that are talking about societal impact or climate change or mental health issues, right? And so we try to integrate the games that we find the most compelling. There are so many out there already that have been created. We try to integrate those games into our library to expose them to users that would benefit the most from them. So games focusing, like I said, on grief, on anxiety, OCD, that's just to name a few, right? There are many, many others, right? And divorce, which is another big one, or being in a long distance relationship and not being able to see each other, or
I think I've done all of those.
starting to date after separating, which is for me, and it's again, like, but if you think about it, that's another challenge you don't think about during a separation. You think about all of the stress that you have going through the separation yourself, and starting a new life again, being single again, but then dating again, and now having to create online personas to date again, right? So it's
exactly,
this
because
incredible new journey that you go on. Yeah.
If you looked at when I was dating, right? When I was dating previous, right? My dating experience wasn't online. It was going to bars, it was going to restaurants, it was joining up groups and hobbies and stuff like that. And it wasn't actually, it wasn't going online and putting a profile out there.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's so different now than it was. I just say my generation because I'm not that old either. But it's like, let's say millennials did not really have. Yeah, right. I mean, like I'm would qualify it to be that. I had the same. like online websites, like websites for dating has kind of started to spring up here and
Yes.
there, Match and Cupid, and there are many of them. I don't know, but like I never used it because we were we were kind of okay in university, meeting people, going out, same, exactly the same. But now it's so invasive. I do not know a single couple in the last 5 years that has not met using Tinder, Babel. What's the other one?
Oh,
God, there's
there's
there's many of them.
Hinge,
Sorry.
there's like plenty
Yeah,
of
Hinge.
fish,
Yes,
there's
Hinge.
loads and loads, there's loads
There's
out
so
there.
many of them. And
Yeah.
and they're all catered to different audiences now. So if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
single with a kid, there's like a different kind of app you can even use for that to meet other parents who have also gone through separations, right? So, but the idea is you don't meet these people organically. You meet them online in a kind of almost manufactured way. So navigating that by itself is already a huge undertaking for someone who's been married for X number of years and has not been active in the dating scene, right? So,
But also,
um,
if you
but I mean, the idea
if you go out there and you're
yeah,
trying to look to date, like what I would call normally, right? Nobody who's single is looking to date that way because they're all on the
mm,
apps with 6 or 7 other people that they're talking to. So
indeed, yeah,
nobody goes out as a single person and goes, oh, I'm going to go to a bar and I'm going to meet somebody at a bar, because they're juggling 6 or 7 people on an app. So yeah,
yeah,
why would they juggle
exactly.
somebody who actually isn't on the app, who is in person in front of them? So yeah,
Yeah,
no, bizarre
no,
world that we live in.
it's yeah, that's the only word to describe it, right? It's for anyone else that has not been doing it, it's strange. It is
Yeah.
like a brand new, totally new experience, and you don't know how you're supposed to behave. You don't know, I mean, yeah, creating the profile on a dating app is already like a kind of project, right? Because you have
Oh,
to figure out how you want other people to see you. So basically, you can play a game where someone is navigating that for you, essentially, and they're going through the kind of
wow.
emotions that you will likely go through, right? Rejection, being ghosted, kind of all of these things that are newer mental health issues, but they still have ramifications on how you look at yourself, your self-confidence, and so on, right? You might be able to be better prepared for what's coming in the future if that's the path you choose. And so that's really why we think that video games could be oh my god, I'm going to use something so cliche, like a game changer. Sorry, but we think it could be something that really helps people to be prepared for the emotions that are going to come along with the journey that you're taking, because it's not just going to be lovely roses all the time, right?
Oh.
There's going to be another set of things that come along with the
So
recovery.
is it that with the gaming sort of experience that you live vicariously through a character as such? That you sort of like, so let's take it as that character gets put into different situations and scenarios. Let's take dating for one. And you go on a fantastic first date and then you get ghosted, right? Which I know I've spoken to several mates and that's not happened to me, thank God. But like that's happened to them. And yeah, so they've gone on a first date. It's gone swimmingly well, but then they get ghosted and they don't understand. So that's sort of what your character would go through, and then you would then sit and experience those feelings
Yeah,
as
I mean
such
that's
and
the
how you
idea.
could deal with it.
Rather than just exactly that, right? Or it could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be
Oh,
ghosted, right? You go on a date with someone and then they follow you
oh,
home, or it becomes a situation where you kind of go, yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too explicit with the details, but if you put yourself on a first date with a stranger, it can go a myriad of ways, right? They could like you more than you like them. You could like them way more than they like you. You could be ghosted. They could bully you. They could stalk you, right? I mean, there are just so many things that come from going on this journey of meeting people new for the first time and trying to establish romantic relationships, that we can't prepare you for all of them, but we can at least try to educate you on some of the newer ones, like being ghosted, being cyber stalked, being cyber bullied. These are relatively new. I mean, they've come up because the internet is so pervasive. And so trying to prepare you for you know I mean, you can't ever be fully prepared, but at least trying to make you aware, at least, of like, this is a possibility that could happen. So how can you protect yourself? Do you give them just an email address to contact you, or do you do all through your communication through Instagram or through through the app that you met them, and you don't give them any private information about yourself? How can you protect yourself to make sure that they're not harassing you, they're not contacting you more than you like, or if you really do like them and you really feel a chemistry, when you give them your number, what can you expect, right? So it's just, yeah, we can't prepare for every single scenario, but we just want to make people aware that this journey of separating and kind of starting over again is going to be different than the first time you did this, right? It's going to be very different because now you're putting an image of yourself online available to anyone, and you don't know who is the person, and the person on the other side could be someone completely different. Catfishing is also a real possibility, right? They might say that they are someone that they're not. I don't know if you've ever seen the Tinder Swindler movie, but it's really like
I have. It's frightening.
it's I mean, it's just terrifying, this, and the laws haven't really caught up to these kind of crimes. So it's not like you could even go to law enforcement or someone like that to help you. So yeah, there's just a lot of things to be aware of.
Well, this is the thing, right? And also, like the laws, right? So if these people do this to you, right, then they don't seem to be put away in prison for a very long time, and they don't seem to have to be made to pay back all the money they've swindled and things like that. And I just did a quick little check online regarding catfishing, right? 20,000 people are catfished in the US per year, with 41% of US adults online reporting being a victim in 2020. 41%. That's huge. I mean, I don't know how many people are online,
and unfortunately, now,
it's a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it now. With these advent of deep fakes, and people can essentially create AI images.
This is what I was going to say.
This number is not going to do any but rise, and so it's not like trying to because trying to stifle the tech is really, for me, not the answer. It will never happen. It just it's so exponential because of the COVID pandemic, and the fact that we had to quickly adapt to a situation where suddenly you needed tech in your house, you needed constant internet, you needed to be able to be available all the time, and so on. Because of that, there's just this huge boom in the technological space of, unfortunately, things that probably have really good intentions but can also be used maliciously. And we just need to bear that in mind when it comes to tech, right? Tech can be an amazing force for good, with video games, with even this app, right? It's a tech investment, it's a tech advancement of sorts, but it's not foolproof. There are always going to be people who are there for the wrong reasons, and they're there to try to scam you or try to get something from you or sell you something or whatever. So we just always kind of have to be mindful, have a awareness.
The thing is, tech is there as a tool, right? We're human beings are the things that are the creative aspect of that, right? So tech is the tool. We're the ones who use that tech in a creative way to enable various different things. AI artwork, AI,
of course,
I'm trying to think. My brain's gone dead because it's like nighttime here for me. But but it is, right? We're the things that are the creative beings. AI and tech isn't creative, okay? It can be if it's put in the hands of human beings who can then create amazing things with it, or destructive things with it, like you were saying, right? But we're the things that create that. Wow. So look, so you're now, so that's what you're pursuing at the moment, is gaming and how it can help people with their experiences and stuff. No, that's really interesting. Look, how many people are using this at the moment? Have you got figures on people in there using it? And how do people access it?
Yeah, so we've gotten Yeah, so you can download it right now. It's available on the Apple Store. It's available for at Google blah 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 at Google Play as well. It's called Confidential Conversations.
So you just search for it then,
It
do
does
you?
cost like very something. Yep, you can search for it. It costs something nominal to download it right now. I think it costs like one. It would be the equivalent of one Australian
Oh,
dollar
okay.
or like one Swiss franc or one euro or one US dollar, something like that. It costs. That's not done to try and prohibit people or discourage people. It's really just to try to. It's a beta test to see, right? Are people willing to invest into their mental health, and if so, how much? Certainly cheaper than any therapist appointment that I know about. Um, and it's available right now. And the currently, I believe it's we had 300 users as of the end of April. I think now it's probably closer to 350 ish. I don't have exactly the number because I the data that I see is really just the number of users that we have, active users, and the device that they use. That's all I know about the users, and I have some geographic information about where it was downloaded from. So quite a few out of EMEA because that's where I'm based, and quite a few in the APAC region as well. Would say it's not an even split, but it's somewhere in this region, and much less
But
in the US and
But it doesn't really
in
matter
South America right now.
location-wise, does it? Because at the end of the day, you're
No, it doesn't
joining,
matter.
and
No.
if you've got like 350 people on it, like in groups of 6 to 7, right? That's a hell of a lot of groups that you've got sitting there
Yeah,
talking
it's quite some
and
group.
healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, let's hope, right? That's really, again, because I'm not monitoring the
No.
conversations, but I really hope that people are actively enjoying it and using it and learning from it somehow, right? And it's a really interesting gauge of what people are suffering from. What are the top, I have my own ideas about what are the top mental health issues that people have, but then you see the groups that are
Yeah.
created, and sometimes they're
Wow.
surprising, sometimes they're, like the one that surprised me the most is we have quite a few groups suffering from imposter syndrome.
Wow.
Much more than I would have thought. Really much more than I would have thought. Or sexual harassment at work specifically.
Yeah, I can see
So,
that.
I mean, that's really sad. But these are people who don't have an outlet to talk about it at work, right? Because you can't, mental health in the workplace. Give me another hour, I could talk to you about all
Yeah.
the issues,
Oh, yeah.
mental health in the workplace. But I mean, if this offers an outlet for people to say, yeah, my boss is mistreating me, or I'm being sexually harassed at work because I'm the only woman on an all male team, or I don't know, I'm the only male in a completely female organization. I don't know. It is a place for people to really be able to talk about what's going on, and what you see there is really, the shared experiences and the the force of good that can come from that, where you really, how do you stand up in that situation? How do you say this is unacceptable? Who can you talk to that, it won't negatively impact your career if that's where you plan to stay? So yeah, quite some interesting things. And then you have the standard players, the anxiety, the depression, the burnout is a lot, much more too as well. You have, and then you have, yeah, in the section of kind of like trauma, PTSD and sexual harassment, and people, like I said, people who have suffered from natural disasters or from car crashes or bullet wounds or things like that. It's less than what you would think, but I think it's also because that subject matter is so much more hard hitting, right? It's something that you survived, that so being someone who survived that shouldn't, you feel like you shouldn't have for whatever reason. Yeah, these are things that are I think there are less groups, but my theory is that those groups are probably way more impactful and hard hitting because they're having really tough conversations about their own experiences, what they went through, why did they survive, how can they cope with surviving or feel like they belong when they don't think
Yeah.
they should have survived, right? So yeah,
Yeah, no, that's right.
it's really interesting, the dynamic.
Wow. So people out there, get onto the App Store and get downloading. It sounds
Yeah.
well, no, it sounds like a really interesting tool, that, and being a single parent, like sometimes you don't get the time to actually go to see a therapist, right? You've got to, like, you know, sometimes you're working 24/7 or whatever because you've got to pick the children up from school. You've got to work 9 to 5 or whatever, and you don't have the time. You can't take the time off work to go and see a therapist, and you've got nobody to look after your children to go and see a therapist. And so it's easier to speak to people at night when the kids have gone to bed or whatever. It's just an easier way of dealing with issues. You know, especially like I'm in Australia on my own, right? I don't have any family. I don't have anyone I can then hand my son over to then be able to go to see a therapist. Although a lot of companies are very good at, you know, supporting you. If you need to go and speak to a therapist, they'll give you the time off. But yeah. So look, thank you for coming and speaking to us about this app. It's, I think it's fantastic. And I think we need more tools out there like this because it's just another tool in the toolbox that can help us to actually try and stay sane in these crazy internet, insane world changing in times as such.
Yeah.
Look, I've got one final question for you, and it's a little bit, well, maybe it'll be connected to the app, maybe it won't, right? What piece of advice has someone given to you that you still use to this day? What, you know, is there anything that you have been given over your years?
Yeah. Probably the one that has been, I mean, it's kind of, it's going to sound a bit cliche because it's so
Right, they're usually the
self-evident,
best.
but I think it takes a long time to. My mentor told me this when I first started my career because I'm a woman in tech. I'm already a minority, and I am actually a minority. So it's like, you know, it's a very lonely road for people like us who really care about technology and care about the impact that it has and the repercussions of using it. And she told me, be patient and never be afraid to fail.
Yes.
And I think for me, the patience thing is still an ongoing journey, I have to say, because I've never been a patient person. I'm a very hard worker, but I'm also, I really respect, I expect results from my work. You know, I don't really, for me, it's really unacceptable to just, it was at least unacceptable for me to put something out there and then really not have something come back, some recognition, some praise, something that showed that what I did was worth the time I put into it. But this advice has really stuck with me because when I was developing the app and putting it out there, I kept asking myself, do I care if it's successful or not?
Wow.
Like, do I really, do I, you know, what do I need in order, for myself, for me to feel like it was a success? And honestly, the true answer is if this app can help one person the way it helped me, then that's all I need. I mean, for it to be a monetary success, or I'm not looking at it for, you know, I would never expect this app. I mean, great if I get at some point like 500,000 users, that's wonderful. But, you know, that's not the reason I created it. I created it so that it could help someone else the way I was able to work through my mental health issues by doing this project, by releasing it, and really the joy that it brought when I saw that people, there was an audience for it. There was kind of like a very instant, like, oh yes, thank goodness, and I was waiting for this, you know, something like that, right? And that's really all it takes. I don't need the app to be monetarily successful. I didn't do it for the money. I did it so that people could have an outlet for themselves, and so for me, people may look at it and go, oh, 300 users, this is a failure, right? If you look at the amount of time and so on, like you really weigh it on paper, you could look at it and say, well, definitely not worth the 10 months you put into it. But look, it's helping people. At the end of the day, I know that it's helping people, and that knowledge is enough to really make me feel like, well, so if this app helps someone to not commit suicide,
exactly.
if this app helps someone to, you know, if this helps someone to regain some confidence in their own life, or regain some freedom in their own life, or control, then, you know, how can you put a price on that? So for me, it's really like, you know, use it if you need it, but, you know, I'm not doing I mean, for me, it's already a success. It's just having the experience of releasing it and having that project kind of accomplished for me was already a
Yeah.
tremendous
Yeah.
hurdle to overcome. And if other people use it and like it and find joy in it and are able to navigate their mental health somehow, then all the better.
And look, 9 people in Australia succeed, and that's probably not the right word I should be using, but are successful at committing suicide every day in Australia. So 9 people every day, which is frightening, really. But it's 9 people every day are successful. Really. Successful. They don't attempt it and then fail. They're successful at committing suicide, right? So if your app is out there and you're helping 350 people to stay sane and not feel as though they're the only ones out there and they need to deal with and sort out their issues, you're saving people's lives. And I think that's, that's awesome. And that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, right? We're strong, single, and human, right? We're human. We make mistakes. We aren't perfect. There's no manual with a relationship. There's no manual with bringing up kids. Life happens to people. We don't all become single parents because we've had a horrible divorce and a horrible relationship and domestic violence and, addiction and all of this stuff. But sometimes it's through bereavement and various different other things, right? So, yeah, that's why I started this, to go, hey, guys, there's some hope out there, and to publicize things like your app to help. And it's like if I just help one person, then that's awesome. That's worthwhile for me. So it's great. So look, thank you for coming and telling us about the app. Thank you so much. It's been we've been doing some juggling over the last couple of months to get you on this podcast interview, but
Indeed.
But that's okay. We got there in the end. We got there, so it's all good. And yeah, look, I wish you every success with this. Let's hope, come back when you've hit your 10,000 user. And, I'm sky's the limit. 1 million user.
Happily.
Let's go 1 million.
Oh,
that would be awesome, right?
Happily. I mean, that would be great. The more users use it, the higher probability there is that, we can try to really do some good, right? So, 10,000 users already is music to my ears. That sounds great.
Well, as soon as you hit 10,000,
thank you too for.
As soon as you hit 10,000, right, you're back on, all right. So we'll just, that's our promise.
Absolutely, and thank you as well. I mean, being a single parent is probably one of the hardest cards you can be dealt, and I know your story really intimately now, and so I just think you're an amazing role model for people that are navigating this space, because it's tough. And, you're very open about saying how tough it is, especially when you have a kid and you have a lot of other responsibilities. I mean, it's a very difficult card to be dealt, especially given the situation that you had specifically. So continue to fight the good fight, because I think you're a good role model for the team.
Thank you. Yeah, look, it is hard. It's tough. But you just have to work through it. And this podcast has been my savior. So, I've learned so much from people like yourselves. And, it just gets me through all the time. So somebody up somewhere is looking down on me going, keep going, keep doing the podcast, keep staying insane. So, look, thank you. Look, it's your daytime, my evening. So I'm going to try and get my son into bed, which might not be a mean feat in itself. But look, thank you once again for coming on board, and we wish you all the best success.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you would like to hear more, please hit subscribe wherever you like to hear podcasts. If you would like to support us further, share this episode with your friends and family. And finally, drop us a review on iTunes, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and ideas. It all helps me to understand and produce awesome content you want to hear just like this. If you want to check out our past episodes, write to us, appear on the podcast, or for links, resources, and show notes, go to our website, www.strongsingleandhuman.com. We are also on all the usual social media platforms, Insta, Facey and Twitter. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Be kind to yourself, and remember, no one is perfect. We're all just putting one foot in front of the other and doing our best. I'm Claire Martin, and you've been listening to the Strong, Single and Human podcast.